Hey, welcome back. Due to some unfortunate weather conditions on the East Coast, our IBM presenter is presenting remotely today. I'd like to introduce you to Steve Keniston. And Steve has been a storage industry professional for over 20 years. Steve made his mark at the Enterprise Storage Group, now Enterprise Strategy Group, covering topics such as next-gen data protection as well as disaster recovery and high availability. Over the last decade, Steve has provided high energy and high impact to startup companies as well as Fortune 50 companies alike with marketing, strategy, and business development. Steve has helped companies such as Connected Corp, Avamar, Storewise, all through acquisitions into Iron Mountain, EMC, and IBM respectively. In Steve's current role at IBM, he's a worldwide business development executive for the IBM Spectrum storage software portfolio. Steve is a professional blogger at thestoragealchemist.com, podcaster, which you'll have that address later, and a noted industry speaker. Welcome, Steve.
Great, thank you very much. And apologize everyone for not making it there, having some severe weather. We were yesterday and into today in Boston. My colleague Randy Arsenault is stuck without power or internet or cell phone. So I appreciate you guys bearing with us and giving us the opportunity to present to you all. As we said, my name is Steve Keniston. I'm a business development executive for the entire Spectrum storage software suite portfolio. And I want to take you through a little bit of our data services journey. So all of the data services that are provided by our software within the portfolio and how they can apply to some of the things that you guys are doing. This is meant to be real high level, cover a lot of different things. And should you have any questions or anything, please feel free, to let me know. So with that, we'll start. Charles Dickens once said, "It's the best of times, it's the worst of times," right? And I think it's the best of times because there's a lot of different options and opportunities for businesses to be able to drive forward and make lots of money and be very competitive. But at the same time, it's the worst of times because when you have a lot of these choices, the question is, what's the best for my organization? And you combine that with also all of the internal threats or even external threats that are forcing businesses to take, some pretty severe precautions. You got to kind of plan this strategic, how do I evolve my infrastructure? You've got to do that with a real clear head and a real good thinking cap on, and make sure you're solving a lot of these different solutions. So let's dive into some of these things. So I want to talk about today some of the macro trends happening within the industry. Let's map out a few of the different solutions to kind of handle these macro trends, and then some forward-looking thoughts about what's coming on the horizon for IBM and things you should be aware of and be ready for. So what I'd like to do is just start with just a brief primer is when we at IBM talk about some of these things, terminology can always get kind of lost in a lot of the different things that folks are doing or thinking as they're reading and looking at different solutions. But when we speak about open and portable, we're talking about the ability to run any application, anywhere, at any time. And, it's built one time, right? But can run in anywhere on any platform and is available to be able to solve multiple different issues for potential customers, clients, and that sort of thing. Hybrid multi-cloud, existing infrastructure that can extend, we can take your existing infrastructure, extend to any cloud that you wish. And we know today that more and more clients have this hybrid cloud strategy, multi-cloud strategy within their infrastructure because different folks like to be able to take advantage of different tools. We talk about modernizing and transforming. This is the ability to really kind of change some of the things within your environment that might be more locked down and add a lot more flexibility and agility to that overall infrastructure to give folks a lot more ease of using these new tools and be able to take advantage of them. Cloud native workloads and applications. We want to talk a little bit about the ability to leverage kind of new open source capabilities that can run anywhere. And as we said before, be written one time but deployed in multiple locations so that folks can take advantage of them. And then these containerization and microservices is kind of the evolution of the next generation of where we're going from physical to virtual, and then now virtual to containerized workloads and these microservices that really make it easy, much easier to develop new capabilities and have them do that much faster in a much more agile way, and not only build them faster, but also put them into production a lot faster so that folks can take advantage of these. So that's just roughly, as you start to hear some of these things come out, these are the things that we're talking about. So we talk about a little bit the past, although within IT, I think the past is a very short period of time and the future is, moving right on us very, very quickly. We think about, things used to be customer-driven innovation. In other words, as you needed new things, the customer base was the folks who were asking for the new capabilities to be able to come available, or I need these types of new things for whatever my product is, or that sort of thing. The digital and AI was really more around the experimentation phase, in the most recent past, as far as what types of things do I want to take advantage of with AI tools and what can they actually do for me. And there was a lot of things going on, not in production, but more in development about what does the future hold for this. And then as far as these applications that are driving new user cloud-based opportunities and new cloud workloads, these were really formed around kind of the major public cloud providers. But we're seeing a lot of this stuff morph into, these were all additive capabilities. And now what we're seeing, these were additive to existing infrastructure. And now what we're seeing as we start to evolve is things move into newer transformative things where the business has to kind of evolve where they were before, not just add to, but really transform and kind of refactor their existing workloads to kind of get a bigger bang for the buck. You're seeing enterprise-driven innovation now, where it's not just the consumer asking for new things, but now that we have this speed, the ability for the enterprise to be able to drive new capabilities into their existing solution sets. AI and ML have taken a vastly big turn, whereas now we're having better ways and better access to more information to drive new learning, and that learning turning into competitive advantage. And we'll talk about how some of the IBM solutions actually help foster some of that speed to innovation. And we're unlocking multiple mission critical workloads now throughout the hybrid multi-cloud experience, both for customers as well as the users of the data and the applications who might sit within an infrastructure. So the big question is how do you turn that around and lock those down such that you have the right security, you have the right access, you have the right capabilities, so that your infrastructure is because now your infrastructure expands beyond just being on-prem, expands outwardly and can be taken advantage of by the folks that need to do it, that are driving innovation for the business, but also not infiltrated in a negative or adverse way, such as a cyber threat or something like that. So all of these really kind of transition into kind of the future of this hybrid multi-cloud world and where things are going into the future. Now, when we look at, the center here really talks to the things that are desired for within your infrastructure, right? You want integration, you want virtualization, you want mobility, both mobility of your applications, but also mobility of your data. You want things to be very modern, right? You're looking at doing things like refactoring applications to be able to move the development of those into much faster. You want an agile environment and an agile development community so that they can not only have access to the information, but they can build and leverage that information or the tools that they want in any particular cloud. Think DevOps, very good at taking advantage of things like AWS to be able to build on top of their solution set, but marketing may be more geared towards a Google Cloud because of the tools that they have. So you need that flexibility. You want open data services and this open data fabric. Ultimately, what does your data lake look like? How is the data being accessed and how are you taking advantage of it? And at the end of the day, it needs to be very secure, right? Because you don't want it to be infiltrated by any of the cyber threats that are out there today. And a lot of this stuff took place, whether it be on-prem with legacy applications, trying to pursue a lot of those capabilities and building out those capabilities with your traditional file and object workloads, as well as take advantage of your existing infrastructure for data protection to make sure that that data was locked down. But things are evolving, right? And as things start to evolve, right, you need to be able to do things like take advantage of multiple different clouds, both public and hybrid, to be able to extend the reach of the different applications that folks need access to. You've got multiple different environments or multiple different folks who need to be able to take advantage of, whether it be DevOps or as we talked about before, marketing. And then, you know, a lot of speed to innovation really takes advantage of things like open source, and then the ability to move beyond in your protection infrastructure to take a more proactive role into things like intrusion detection, to find these things before they actually impact your overall data sets. Now, as we look forward, right, a lot of these things take advantage of things like containerization. As you modernize your infrastructure, you're thinking about containerization. You're doing things like taking advantage of open standards to be able to leverage that information across multiple different platforms. You need great workload mobility, and you're taking advantage of what we're calling the enterprise data fabric. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that open data fabric looks like. So some interesting North Dakota fun facts we've thrown in here. Did we know, I'm sure you probably did, that the world's most number of snow angels, there was a record in the Guinness Book of World Records, used to be around 3,000 and something, but in 2007 we set a new record. North Dakota set a new record for the most number of snow angels, upwards of 8,900 snow angels. So good for North Dakota. As we dive into some of the macro trends that are taking place within all around us these days, I don't think it's any big secret. I think a lot of these things we see today are things such as ransomware, malware, really having a huge impact as to the things that are happening today within IT. And having to protect against it, and not just protect against it, but the thought processes on how to recover from a lot of these being really important. In addition, right, this acceleration of what we talked about and the ability to deliver applications quickly through containers and Kubernetes is really taking hold. And then the ability to do this, all of this throughout a multi-cloud infrastructure has become super, super important. So all of these things are influencing or driving infrastructure decisions, data management decisions, data resiliency decisions, and hence all of those things are really driving your financial decisions around how do I invest in my infrastructure to make sure that I'm getting the biggest bang for my buck, but also making sure it's protected and still keeping the business competitive. And so we'll dive into these. We talk a lot about, the fact that having the access to data that we have today, and data being kind of the new fuel, data is the fuel, right, to drive a lot of innovation for companies. And the ability to be able to have as much access to this data in these different data sets as possible is really key and is really important, because by doing so, you really enhance your AI tool, your AI output and your ML output to make those better, stronger, and smarter decisions as we move forward, right? So the next question is how do I do this and where do I do this? So having tools, whether in the multiple different cloud aspects, allows folks to, without having to move data around, and we'll talk about how we do this, right, allows more folks to have access to more data to make smarter decisions for the infrastructure. And we talk about AI being really the accelerator to business by being able to take advantage of all of this information and driving competitive advantage. When we think about, a hybrid cloud world or a hybrid multi-cloud world, right, we see tremendous growth all across the different enterprises around the globe around who's using what and how many, et cetera, right? So on average, businesses today are taking advantage of 5 different clouds, whether it be public clouds for different types of workloads that they have, whether it be a secure cloud like a Microsoft Azure, taking advantage of their tools for things such as mail. It could be just repositories of data where you're using it for things like backup, that data for backup. Multiple different clouds are being taken advantage of today for different reasons and different cost factors, right? And only 20% of the workloads that we have in businesses today have really moved to the cloud, but we're seeing more and more and more workloads migrating into the cloud. So again, whether that's a private cloud or a public cloud or SaaS clouds, there's tremendous growth in the cloud world. And then the next questions start to become consistency of data management across all of these different functions, right? Because there's an OpEx and a CapEx factor that is involved there. The CapEx factor is, what am I actually buying? And two, do I have to buy that because I need to have some form of consistency of management to keep my OpEx or my operating expenses to a minimum. I don't need my teams learning multiple different tools to do the same kinds of things in different locations. Is kind of a waste of energy and a waste of time. So how do we kind of balance all of this together to drive the right set of capabilities for a business? The cloud is, as we said, gaining a lot of momentum, obviously, right? 92% of customers have, a multi-cloud or a hybrid cloud environment already today. And there's a tremendous amount of spend that is continuing to grow and grow. And this is a 2019 view, but as we move into 2020, it's growing even broader as more companies start to take advantage of the cloud and utilize cloud services to be able to transform their business in a much more economical and cost-effective way. So, little comment here. What would you do if you had $34 billion, right? So, some folks might buy 57 different Azurums, or these are if you think about the ruler of Dubai, recently bought a Azurum yacht for their own personal use. You could also buy a number of different castles throughout the world if you had $34 billion. You could buy roughly 1,800 Bugattis. Now, what anyone needs with 1,800 different cars is interesting, but you can have 1,800 Bugattis, or you could have 21 billion phones, or 21 million phones, I should say, the new iPhone 13. But ultimately, what IBM chose to do with their $34 billion is take advantage and buy Red Hat. And as a part of that, what we've done is we've been able to really invest in where we see the future of IT going, both from a cloud aspect, but also from a data management and data services aspect within the cloud. It's one thing to have a set of services for just getting the data into the cloud and having the data live in the cloud. It's another thing to say you want to provide a consistent level of data management across the cloud, such that no matter what tools or what utilities that you're using in the cloud, you have the ability to kind of do this in a very consistent manner, which only makes life easier for you as you're trying to manage it, provision it, protect it, move it around, et cetera, and process it. So that's a big part of the strategy that IBM led into when they started to think about how they were going to achieve with their existing portfolio of software, all of the things within the Spectrum portfolio, how are we going to make life easier for our clients and for customers? And this was the objective. And as we said before, it was this combination of IBM and Red Hat. So from a visionary perspective, right, one of the things that we think about is, and if you start out kind of at the base here, right, you think about what do you have in your infrastructure today, right? You may have some physical systems left over for some of those applications that are not a lift and shift type of an application or something that you're gonna transpose, but something that's working very well for you today. The next step is you definitely have some virtual infrastructure that you're taking advantage of today that is driving a large portion of your applications. There is now this shift moving to a container-based workload set of foundation that allows you to kind of transform a lot of your applications into a much more user-friendly, development-friendly, agile way of developing applications to allow them to be a lot more robust for the folks that are using them. In addition to that, folks are also taking advantage of pre-built applications that are in the cloud, taking advantage of software as a service, living on top of storage as a service for those things that might not be so crucial or competitive to the business, but are standards that they need to adhere to in order to take care of the business. And finally, that they're doing all that on top of a cloud infrastructure. So whether it be IBM, whether it be VMware, whether it be AWS, Azure, or Red Hat, right? At the end of the day, you've got all of these things within your environment. And what we want to try to do in the IBM Systems division, right, is to provide you this enterprise framework that provides for you, at least starting with a robust hybrid cloud infrastructure that allows you to take advantage of any cloud that you want, anywhere that you want, but do it consistently throughout your environment. And the way, and the core things that we need to apply from our portfolio to be able to do this are things such as the resilience of the information that you have there. So starting out number one with, hey, how do we make sure that the data that lives in your environment can withstand any type of threat, not just a cyber threat, a natural disaster, a human error, a system issue? How do we make sure that your information is as resilient as possible? And we have a whole a segment on that. We want to make sure that from an application modernization perspective, that as you're looking at applications that live in your virtual world, you have a way to or your physical world, you have a way to modernize these into the new infrastructure, a new container infrastructure that will help you kind of develop these new applications better, stronger, faster for your client base. And at the end of the day, right, how are we catering or helping you to take the infrastructure that you have with the data that you have that is needed by the knowledge workers within your environment and make it available through different data services or different data operations that allow you to exploit some of the new up and coming things that a business needs in order to maintain a competitive advantage, whether that be AI or ML workloads or different analytics that you need to run within your organization. How do we make sure that you have availability to be able to do that? So, the infrastructure does make a difference. It matters to the different things that you're doing within your infrastructure, right? So you have infrastructure as a service. You tend to wrap that with a software-defined layer that provides you all of the ability, agility, and modernization that you need around all of the different capabilities. So if you were to dissect IT and find the things that they needed to be able to provide at an operational level for the folks within an organization, right? You would see some folks who needed to be able to have the ability to refactor different applications for different business reasons. You'd see a lot of those folks taking advantage of a container workload environment to be able to do that, right? So now what you have is this net new development taking place anywhere at any particular time, right? So there's the location aspect and the follow the sun aspect. So that introduces the time aspect to the things that you're trying to achieve. You've got your traditional computing, cloud computing, public and private computing, right? And you got to be able to make sure that you have that data accessibility to anywhere you want at any time that you want. And that's really followed with this software-defined infrastructure that you can find within the Spectrum portfolio that'll help you achieve managing all of this data as well as infrastructure. So again, the whole objective behind what we're thinking about with the different foundational software development solutions that we have are giving you the ability to build your application one time on whatever platform that is your development platform of choice, right? Deploy it anywhere that you want so that it can be used by any person who needs to access, whether it be the application or the data that you're sharing, right? And be able to do that freely across your environment so that you're not, so that there's no lock-in, right? If you choose to move an application from AWS to the IBM cloud or something like that, you have the flexibility to be able to do that. And it comes with a number of different things, right? It's this ability to take advantage of the different platforms within that you want to tie yourself to, but give you the ability to build these applications and move these applications around. And there's a host of the tools within the Spectrum portfolio that allow you to be able to do that. So again, it's the ability to develop, deploy, and operate. And you've got multiple different environments that you would do this for, whether it be out at the IBM Edge in the cloud, or whether it be on-prem, taking advantage of the different IBM solutions that are on-prem, or if it's in the cloud and you're taking advantage of solutions that we've developed, that we've migrated or built natively in the cloud. You can do this at any particular location. You can do this by taking advantage of the IBM Cloud Paks. So we've got a number of different cloud packs that will allow you to operate in this operational or multi-compute environment, as well as store that information wherever you need to and be able to share it amongst all of those environments to be able to get 1 + 1 = 3, the ability to share it across all of these different places to be able to utilize the information. So from a storage perspective, right, our storage has been specifically designed for the hybrid multi-cloud environment or hybrid multi-cloud space. And this is where we kind of take a look at the storage suite for cloud packs, right? The ability to have taken a lot of the Spectrum storage software and build it into a single cloud pack or a suite of solutions that you can deploy and be able to take advantage of different environments, but maintain consistent management. So our storage suite for cloud packs is container ready and built for container ready or container native storage, and fits inside of the Kubernetes management profile, so that you can actually utilize these right from a common user interface. We're taking advantage of the APIs within the infrastructure that allow you to be able to do intelligent things. So think of your CSI capabilities within the new working environment to be able to do things like take intelligent snapshots, right? Utilize Kubernetes standards for different things. So think flex volumes from IBM as a part of kind of the data management perspective, right? And then complement a lot of this with the Red Hat Ceph storage or OpenShift container storage, which is a core part of the IBM Cloud Pak, and provide the ability to be able to run as a part of this whole IBM data management platform. This gives you a consistent way to be able to manage all the data within the environment and make sure that folks have the right access to that information. When we think about an AI or ML kind of data flow or workload, right, you want to be able to start with your data, make sure that you input a lot of this information or ingest this information as fast as possible, because you're going to start doing, you're going to want to organize that information. And from that organization, you're going to want to then analyze that information in order to get the insights out of it. The foundational components that are a part of that, that play a big part of that, are things like Spectrum Scale, IBM's Cloud Object Storage, Spectrum Discover, and even the ability to output a lot of this information and save it off to tape, let's say, if you want to archive that information. So these are some other of the capabilities within the Spectrum portfolio that allow you to rapidly ingest data, Spectrum Discover to help you organize that data and find the right data that you need in order to make the right business decisions on top of that. And then to be able to output that data, derive answers from that information, and then archive that information off to kind of give the proof as to why you made some of these business decisions in the first place. So again, another set of components within the portfolio that help you kind of drive these next generation workloads. We talk about this global data fabric, and this is a big part of the evolution into our new solution that we'll talk here about in a second, Spectrum Fusion. And this global data fabric really helps to be able to connect. First of all, it's really all about, how do you have access to all of the information that you have all this data that you have without having to spend a lot of time moving the information around and moving it to different locations and different places, right? So it's the ability to connect different applications to a common data set to provide multiple different capabilities, whether it be AI or ML, whether it be protection, whether it be just application building, right? You have the ability to do so. And by doing that, you provide the right level of access through a lot of the mechanisms within this software to be able to make sure that the right folks have the right access to the information. And this enables you to modernize your business. We say modernize without compromise, but this is really about modernizing your business such that you have the ability to kind of take advantage of new applications or build new applications that take advantage of this data, and grow that into new workloads and new competitive capabilities for the overall business. So this global data fabric, as we mentioned before, really gives you this ability to really build out this data lake, so to speak, where data doesn't necessarily have to move, but you can take advantage of things like AI or ML, as we said before, different types of analytics, the protection component, high performance computing, however you want to be able to take advantage and use that data. This is the way that you have the ability to do so, right? And this will really drive the speed and accuracy of the results that you're getting from your business to be able to be more competitive, as we keep saying. The other thing that we've done with the integration of a lot of these different capabilities with folks like NVIDIA and taking advantage of GPUs and that sort of thing is to be able to speed up the ability to process a lot of this information and take advantage of it, as well as integrate with things like S3 that allow you to move this data to any particular location that you want for any particular reason, whether it be long-term retention, long-term storage capabilities, right? Or just provide additional, more intelligent access to that information, again, at any particular location. So, you know, the object storage that we provide for customers through our IBM Cloud Object Storage provides folks the ability within this global data fabric, as well as high performance for a lot of these different things that we talked about, these different use cases and these different workloads, right? Applications aggregate multiple throughput for each of the different storage nodes that need to be able to take advantage of the different pieces of information. And with IBM Object Storage, that can be where your data lake actually lives and resides, and you can use that data for these multiple different workloads just by talking to the through S3 to the common object storage, to the common data pool. Again, we talked about enhancing a lot of this performance with the NVIDIA GPUs to be able to drive much higher performance, and based on IBM's relationship with NVIDIA, we've done a lot of that in our ESS platform, our Cloud Object Storage platform, to be able to drive very, very high performance, both for our file access as well as our object access, and gain better capabilities and deliver results much faster. In addition, we've built out support in the new ESS 3200 platform, which is the platform built on top of Spectrum Scale with the NVIDIA DGX SuperPod. And this gives you even faster results and faster time. I think we announced this in Q3 just a month or so ago. That enables much higher performance to be able to deliver faster results for customers. We've improved the density of ESS, and by improving the density, right, the other thing that you can do is you can cut down on the power footprint and cooling within your environment, which also happens to lower your capital expenditure within the environment. So, you know, with these 32 terabyte IBM FlashCore modules in a single rack, you know, we can really have a much higher density, again, giving you helping you reduce your overall capital expense. Another fun fact, right? The largest bison monument in the world lives in North Dakota, 26 feet tall, 46 feet long, weighing over 60 tons. Now, on the data resilience side, right, and we talk about data resilience beyond just discussing things like cybersecurity, is because no, it's not just about making sure that your environment is protected against cyber threats. Of course, that's first and foremost and predominant, but there are a number of different things that can affect the accessibility to your data. And today, accessibility to your data is kind of the key thing. Without it, you can't really run your business. So we think about data resilience in kind of two aspects, right? We want your environment to be tough, we want it to be locked down as much as possible so that the right people have the right access to it, right? And you can't really tamper with it. But when it's too locked down, it's not flexible enough to be used to be able to take advantage of that data through different data reuse mechanisms to be able to drive innovation. And so you need this right combination of toughness and flexibility to really have a truly resilient environment. And so, what we try to do, and we can start with, recently, probably about 2 months ago, the latest 2021 cost of a data breach report, which is developed by IBM Security and the Ponemon Institute, came out, and they talked about a lot of different things that have happened over the course of the last year with regard to cyber incidents or cyber threats, right? The number of days before something is found, how much it costs, the effect to the reputation of the business. I won't bore you with all these stats and figures, but each one of these links in here is a hyperlink, and I'm sure you'll have access to the content. Please download this report. Very interesting report that'll help you kind of define and think about things to pay attention to when architecting for a resilient environment. Now, in a lot of cases, I would say 100% of the cases, most all customers, they have some form of replication, right? They've got some form of error detection, right? But most of these things are, from an error detection standpoint, are found out after the fact. You have typically one point of recovery, maybe, two, whether it be backup or, recovery or snapshot recovery. Things are isolated. Hopefully, things are being isolated. And, typically most customers have some form of DR scenario within their environment. Now, what they really need to start thinking about is from a replication standpoint of not just replicating 100% of the data, but how do you replicate the right data so that you're not replicating corrupt data to the remote side. Those are some things that you need to think about. How do you provide validation and error detection within that data set to make sure that it's the right thing when you have to go to recover it? Are you providing yourselves multiple recovery points? Do you have some form of an air-gapped system within your environment? Are you protecting that data either logically or physically from being corrupted? And do you have what types of forensics or surgical capabilities do you have to go in and kind of remove certain things from a recovery environment that will continue to infect your data, but allow you to recover most all of your current and active data, right? So these are some things that you need to think about as you move forward. And when you think about this, is forget about product for a moment, right? Think about to better understand what you want to build out or better architect an environment, you need to kind of understand these 5 things, right? First of all, what is the full life cycle of your data in your environment? So from beginning, from when it's born or copied into the environment, where does it live and where does it need to go to? Is that data classified? Because if it's classified, then you can apply the right capabilities to that data set that allow you to recover it and meet the business SLA for that data set. Just because you can back up a petabyte of data in a day, that's no big deal, right? What you need to be able to do is recover the right data set that meets the business SLA at the right time. So we talk about architecting your environment and designing for recovery, not just backup, right? So that may mean you have multiple smaller pods, that's fine, but for the most critical applications, you can recover those to meet that business SLA and keep the uptime available to clients. You want to automate where practical, because we talk about automation as a way to bring that data back. And when something happens, whether it be a cyber threat or a disaster or something like that, people panic, right? It's human nature. How do you get past that human nature and provide automation capabilities that'll enable you to just hit a button, not really have to think about it, and know that you're going to get the data set back? And with automation tools, that also helps with the next one. You have to practice your recovery. We always talk about a DR plan is not a plan if you haven't practiced that plan. When you have a cyber threat or anything, you have a disaster, right? A cyber threat is a disaster. So the ability to practice that plan, know that you can meet the recovery aspects, will help you know that when an event does happen, you should feel safe and confident that you'll be able to meet the business SLAs. We think about this in the from the recent Ponymon report, right? One of the key things that it talks about, and this is just an example of some of the information within the report, right? Here's a list of the top 10 things that affect your data when a breach happens, and how much they typically cost the business, all the way from 2% of the time it's some social engineering aspect costing a business $4.5 million, all the way to compromised credentials that happens nearly 20% of the time. So think malicious actor or credentials from an application that get compromised and something happens to your data. Again, roughly about $4.5 million. So these are some things to think about when architecting your environment, what you need to be able to do. We boil these down into 6 key data resilient capabilities that you need within your environment, right? Number 1 addresses the first and most important thing within the environment, which is addressing the administrative security of your applications or access to your information. Number 2 is the ability to identify or monitor your environment and pull out malicious activity or things that might be happening before they actually have a big effect on your data. Number 3, ensuring you have encryption turned on, right? It's simple and easy to do, but a lot of people forget, and it's a great way to stop bad actors from stealing your information. Providing yourself multiple layers of recovery. What does that do? It enables you to meet the different SLAs for the data at the most timely, in the most timely way possible for different data sets. And quite frankly, if you take advantage of the lowest common denominator, the fastest way to recover, maybe a snapshot, no business can afford, to protect 100% of their data with snapshots. So you need to be able to have these multiple forms to be able to cost effectively protect your business against different types of threats. You need to take advantage of some form of air gapping, right? So you've got up front the multiple layers of recovery, and then where does that data live, right? And hopefully that data is living in some form of air gap where folks can't have access to it. And then the automation components that we talked about that allow you to automate and practice from a recovery standpoint. Some things that we've done within the IBM Flashsystems environment, especially recently, we'll talk about the last one. But first, this high availability, right? 0 RPO, 0 RTO with this advanced replication, the hyperswap capability that can be implemented through IBM's lab services that provides a high level of near zero or 100% uptime. We talked about encryption, as well as most recently our safeguarded copy solution that allows you to take a snapshot within the device, put it in an immutable volume so that it can't be tampered with, and be right there for recovery in the event that something happens. We can look at also comparing that to our Spectrum Protect Plus solution. So at the top here, we see inside the box, that's what the yellow box represents, is the ability to take a snapshot and create an immutable volume inside the device. Below that, we have Spectrum Protect Plus, which allows you to take a snapshot but move that data outside the device, again, onto a mutable volume. And then both solutions practice the same best practice, which recover this information to an immutable volume or an isolated network, test and make sure the data is okay, and then promote it back into production. So I love this because the workflow is 100% identical. Each one gives you the different flexibility as far as where you're putting that information. Again, logically air gap your information, whether it be logical or physical, and this is just kind of a list of the different ways to be able to protect that information, whether it be through getting the data off your local network into the cloud, or taking advantage of some form of immutability with worm capability, or all the way to true physical air gap, removing that tape from a tape library and giving you that air gap that you're looking for so that the data can't be tampered with. And then adding to it, the automation orchestration components that enable you to be able to, see where your data is, be able to recover that information, provide these runbook type steps to be able to recover that, quarantine the data when you find an infection, and be able to meet your business SLAs. It's been a very busy year for IBM over the last 4 quarters, right? So a number of different enhancements to our Flashsystems portfolio, enhancements to our scale portfolio, enhancements to our cloud object storage portfolio, and new announcements around new capabilities. We announced Spectrum Fusion, which we'll talk about here in a second. That is a new appliance-based solution morphing into a software-defined solution coming into next year. So when we think about Spectrum Fusion, the announcement that we made, it's really an all-inclusive solution that provides active file data management as an appliance, right, with flexible, aligned to multiple different protocols, very high performance. It includes data reduction to keep the data footprint small so that you can have lower costs and easier to manage, right? It's optimized for different use cases and can be built to be optimized for multiple different use cases, but especially AI or ML, with the performance of being able to meet large ingests of data and be able to process that information, and built-in security capabilities from a data resilience standpoint that can take those snapshots of your information, be ready to recover in the event that something does happen. So a very robust foundation built and developed in an appliance today and available in coming into next year as a software-defined solution. So as we look ahead, right, there'll be continued innovations in our Flashsystems portfolio, looking at adding capabilities to manage that safeguarded copy within the portfolio. Things like scanning the back end of that data set to ensure that it's clean, so that you're confident upon recovery, you're getting the right data set back. Further developments within Spectrum Fusion as a software-defined only solution, which is very hyperscaler friendly, right? So this is really meant to be a hyperscaler type of solution, and more pervasive AI sets of capabilities being developed and built into the software, so that you have the ability to kind of use these tools to grow and take advantage of AI as you move forward. This gentleman was one of the first, again, North Dakota fun fact, built the first camera, and he was a North Dakota farmer, and sold it to Eastman Kodak for, I think it was roughly $5,000 or something dollars. So pretty interesting, more fun facts for North Dakota. I won't obviously read through this eye chart, but the IBM storage portfolio, the Spectrum storage portfolio, has received a ton of recognition about its different capabilities, whether it be through Spectrum Scale or IBM's cloud object storage, our data resilience, our products in our data resilience portfolio, our Flashsystems, right? This is an award-winning portfolio that allows you to take advantage of these different capabilities to be able to build out your infrastructure. And with that, I want to say thank you.